Unaware my husband didn't know I owned the landlord's company, he forced me out for his pregnant lover. What I did next crushed him. Her husband didn't just cheat. He stood in the doorway of a home he thought they were renting and forced his own wife out of a building she secretly owned. That night, Emily Carter stood in the hallway with her suitcase shaking at her side. Her husband, Tyler Brooks, blocked the doorway, his voice cold, his arm wrapped around a pregnant woman named Claire. "You need to pack your things," he said. "We're done. She needs this home more than you." Claire smirked, resting a hand on her belly like a trophy, eyes running over Emily like she was already gone. "Don't make this harder," Claire whispered loudly, just enough for Emily to hear. He thought she had nowhere to go. He thought she had no money. He thought she was powerless. What he never knew, what he never bothered to ask, was the truth Emily carried in silence. She was the sole beneficiary of the Hamilton Trust, the very landlord's company that owned the entire apartment building, including his unit, including his future. This is not just the story of a man who cheated. It is the story of what happens when the woman he underestimated stops hiding her power and uses it. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. Watching without subscribing is like letting Emily's voice fade back into the silence she lived in for years. When you subscribe, you stand with every woman betrayed, every quiet heart overlooked, and every soul who chose to rise instead of break. The sound hit Emily Carter like a slap. A cabinet door slammed so hard the walls shook, and for a split second, her heart jumped as if danger stood behind her. She froze in the hallway, gripping the edge of the counter. The morning apartment looked calm, but the echo of that slam carried something sharp, something restless. Emily was 31, soft-featured, gentle by nature, the kind of woman people described as quiet but kind. She never raised her voice, rarely argued, and carried her emotions like delicate glass, carefully, thoughtfully, always protecting others before herself. But that violent slam wasn't hers. It came from Tyler, her husband. Though she didn't see him, he often moved around like a storm these days. But this scene would slow, soften, because this was not yet the day of destruction. This was the day the audience needed to know who Emily truly was before everything fell apart. She let out a slow breath and knelt by the dresser drawer she had opened earlier. Inside it, beneath neatly folded scarves, sat a sealed beige envelope. Its print was bold and official: Hamilton Trust. Beneficiary, Emily Carter, née Emily Hamilton. She reached toward it with gentle fingertips but didn't touch it yet. Not today. Emily had grown up in a modest home with her father, Richard Hamilton, a quiet man who built a small but steady property investment company from nothing. They weren't wealthy in the flashy sense. No mansions, no luxury, but they owned buildings, including the very apartment complex she now lived in with Tyler. Her father believed in steady growth, long-term security, and emotional honesty. A soft flashback drifted into her mind like a warm memory washed in morning light. Little Emily, no older than 8, sat on her father's lap as he signed a stack of trust documents at the dining table. His hand moved slowly, patiently, and he kissed the top of her head before whispering the sentence that shaped her entire adult life. "People treat you differently when they think you have money. Protect your heart, Emily. Not everyone you love will love you for the right reasons." The flashback dissolved gently. Emily blinked, remembering how those words guided her through every relationship, especially one. Tyler Brooks, her husband for 4 years, entered her life when she was 26. She met him at a small volunteer event. He was charming, confident, older by a few years, and quick to joke about life. Their first real conversation happened while they sorted donation boxes together. She remembered the exact moment they reached the subject of trust funds, because it shaped everything that was to come. Emily had smiled softly, sharing a small joke about real estate. Tyler laughed, then shook his head and said, "Trust fund brats never know real love. Everything's handed to them. I can't stand that type." He said it casually, not knowing that Emily's father had passed months earlier, leaving her the beneficiary of the Hamilton Trust, making her, by definition, the kind of person he claimed to dislike. In that moment, Emily had swallowed her truth. She told him nothing. And from that silence, a secret life began. The flashback faded, and she rose from the drawer, closing it carefully. After her father's estate settled, Emily had set up everything under Hamilton Trust with her maiden name on the paperwork and a separate account that quietly handled bills, including rent on this very unit. Tyler never saw those statements. They went straight to her private email in the trust office. Emily had never revealed her inheritance to Tyler, not even after marriage, because she feared he would look at her differently. She wanted love built on connection, not ownership or opportunity. Her devotion to Tyler grew in the years that followed. She kept their home tidy, supported his projects, listened to his worries, and believed their marriage was built on trust. Tyler knew her as a simple woman with a humble past, nothing more. He never questioned why rent was always on time, why repairs were handled easily, or why she never panicked about bills. He assumed luck. She allowed it. She checked the time. She needed to leave for work soon. Emily was meticulous about small tasks, adjusting a crooked picture frame, straightening a cushion, smoothing a wrinkle in the curtain. These habits weren't perfectionism. They were grounding, tiny rituals that helped her carry a past she never spoke about. A soft sigh cut through the air behind her. She turned. Tyler stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed. He was 34, tall, handsome in a sharp-edged way, with eyes that once held warmth but now looked impatient, distracted, distant. His jaw was tight as if he were holding back irritation. He glanced at Emily's calm posture and said nothing, just watched her with an expression she couldn't read. Emily managed a small smile. Heading out soon. Do you need anything before I go? He didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his phone, checked a message quickly, then turned the screen slightly away from her and walked off, the tension in his shoulders leaving a strange heaviness in the air. The phone screen flashed just long enough for Emily to notice one detail she wasn't meant to see, a name she didn't recognize, a message he hid too quickly. Her stomach tightened. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt something shift, something small, quiet, but sharp enough to break the peace of the morning. And as she picked up her bag to leave, she felt a whisper of something colder waiting just beyond the next scene. She didn't know it yet, but Tyler's secret message was the first thread that would soon unravel everything she believed about her marriage. The argument came out of nowhere. Tyler's voice cracked through the apartment like a whip. "I can't do this anymore," he shouted from the living room. Emily spun around so fast she nearly dropped her bag. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The intensity in his tone was too sharp, too sudden for early morning. She hurried toward him, instinctively trying to bring calm, but her steps slowed when she saw him standing in the center of the room, fists clenched at his sides. Tyler Brooks, 34, her husband of 4 years, looked overwhelmed, angry, stressed, exhausted. His brows were tight, his jaw sharp, and the tension around him thick like a storm that refused to break. "Can't do what?" Emily asked quietly. He ran a hand through his hair. "The bills, Emily. The rent. My job barely covers anything. I swear I'm drowning here." His voice cracked at the end, desperate but strangely rehearsed. The intensity softened, and Emily's chest eased just a little. They had been here before, these emotional storms followed by quiet collapses. And every time, she had been the one who steadied the ground. But Tyler didn't know the truth. He didn't know the rent was covered, always covered, because the building belonged to her family trust. He didn't know the bills never piled up because she paid them discreetly before they could trouble him, scheduling payments through the Hamilton Trust account long before due dates. He didn't know she had inherited more than memories. He didn't know anything at all, and Emily had made sure of that. Her mind drifted, slowly, into the past, into the days when she first believed Tyler was the safest place she could put her heart. She was 26, standing by her father's grave, the world gray and hollow. Her father had been her anchor. Losing him cut through her like winter wind. Tyler approached her gently, placing a hand on her back. He wasn't a close friend then, just someone she knew through community work, but he stayed with her the entire service. He didn't push, didn't ask for anything. He simply stood beside her. For a girl who had lost everything solid in her life, his presence felt like warmth. A few weeks later, Emily returned to her father's house to pack his belongings. She had fought tears for hours until Tyler showed up at her door, uninvited but welcome. "I figured you shouldn't do this alone," he said softly. He didn't know the house, along with 5 other properties, would soon transfer into a trust under her maiden name. He didn't know the legal documents were still processing. He lifted boxes, pulled old photos from shelves, listened to stories about her father. Emily remembered how he looked at her then, with admiration, tenderness, and sincerity. She mistook it for pure love. One evening, while they ate takeout on the floor of her nearly empty childhood home, Tyler laughed at a story on TV about a wealthy heir. "Trust fund brats," he said. "They never learn real life. They never know real love. Everything comes easy." Emily had frozen. He didn't know her father had just left her the Hamilton Trust. He didn't know she was exactly what he mocked, and she instantly decided he never would. The flashbacks dissolved like soft colors fading off a canvas. Back in the present, Tyler paced the room with heavy footsteps. "I'm doing my best," he said dramatically. "I'm trying, Emily." She stepped closer, laying a gentle hand on his arm. "I know. We'll manage." He paused, looking at her as if she were a warm blanket on a cold night. Relief washed over his face. Too much relief, because Tyler didn't just see comfort, he saw convenience. Emily didn't know it yet, but he had built a version of her in his mind, a version who would always soften his failures, carry his weight, clean up his messes. A version who existed to make his life easier. How much of his love came from her heart? How much came from the fact that she made his problems disappear? Emily slowly walked to the counter and quietly paid the phone bill Tyler had been complaining about. She didn't even mention it. She never did. He said he loved my simplicity, she thought. He never questioned why things were always okay. As she smoothed the receipt into her planner, Tyler's phone buzzed. He snatched it up instantly. Emily noticed how fast he turned the screen away from her. So fast it almost slipped from his hand. Her breath caught. His shoulders stiffened. He typed something quickly, screen still hidden, then looked up with a smile far too tight. "Work message," he said. It wasn't, and Emily knew it. Her stomach dipped hard, because deep in her bones, something whispered that this message, this moment, was the start of cracks she had never seen before. And when Tyler's phone buzzed again, the name flashing on his screen would become the one thing Emily could never forget. The crash was so loud it jolted Emily from sleep, a heavy thud shaking the living room floor. Her heart jumped into her throat as she shot up from the couch, breath tight, mind racing with the worst possibilities. She hurried toward the sound, pulse pounding, only to find Tyler slamming the front door behind him. He didn't even look at her. He walked past with his jaw clenched, shoulders stiff, sweat beading on his forehead, as if he had been running or hiding. The intensity of the moment left her silent. She watched him drop his keys on the counter, his movements fast and restless. Tyler Brooks, her husband, the man she believed she knew better than anyone, was starting to become someone she didn't recognize. But after that explosive entrance, the energy slowly softened. Emily pulled a blanket tighter around herself and approached him carefully, not wanting to trigger another outburst. "You're home late," she said, gentle as always. Tyler didn't answer at first. Instead, he checked his phone with a quick swipe. Emily caught the brief flash of tension crossing his face before he forced a smile. "Work ran long," he finally replied. "Lots of paperwork." But Tyler was not the kind of man who enjoyed extra hours. He hated staying late. In 4 years of marriage, he had never been the one to volunteer for extra shifts or extra responsibility. And now suddenly he was leaving early, returning late, and guarding his phone as if it held secrets that could burn him alive. Emily watched him move across the room. He stopped in the hallway, looking down at his screen. His posture changed, slouched forward, protective. She saw guilt flicker across his expression. Then she heard the words that froze the air around her. "She doesn't suspect anything." His voice was low, almost a whisper, but clear enough that Emily felt it like a knife point against her spine. Her breath stopped. Tyler's head snapped up when he noticed her silhouette in the doorway. His face drained of color. He faked a cough and hung up immediately. "Emily, hey, didn't know you were awake." Her fingers tightened around the blanket. "Who were you talking to?" He gave a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Just Martin from work. He's dealing with something." It was a weak lie. Tyler was terrible at lying, especially when startled. His eyes darted left, then right, as if searching for a story that wouldn't collapse under its own weight. Emily nodded slowly, pretending to accept it. She didn't fight him. She didn't push. She had learned long ago that silence often revealed more truth than direct questions ever could. Later that evening, when Tyler went to take a shower, Emily decided to tidy the living room. Her hands moved through familiar motions, folding blankets, organizing cushions, anything to calm the growing storm inside her. She knelt beside the couch to pick up a remote when something small and metallic caught her eye. Something shiny wedged between the cushions. She reached in and pulled it free. A silver bracelet. Not hers. Not even close to anything she owned. Too elegant. Too delicate. Too unfamiliar. Emily preferred simple pieces. This one looked expensive, carefully chosen. Her heart thudded painfully. The room felt colder. Emily held it for a long moment, then placed it carefully on the coffee table, positioning it where Tyler would see it. She didn't shout. She didn't question. Just placed it plainly, silently, a quiet test. When Tyler walked out of the hallway and saw the bracelet, his reaction was tiny but unmistakable. His eyes widened, a quick involuntary flinch before he forced a neutral expression. "That yours?" he asked too quickly. Emily shook her head. "No." Tyler swallowed hard, lips parting as if he wanted to say something. But then his phone buzzed in his hand. He looked down. Emily saw it. The brief panic, the hesitation, the decision to step into the bedroom before reading it. When he returned, he tried to act normal, but the air between them had changed. It had cracked. They sat together on the couch, pretending to watch TV, but Tyler kept checking the hallway, as if he were waiting for something or someone. And Emily felt something she had not felt once in their marriage. Fear, not of him, but of what she was about to learn. Hours later, as they prepared for bed, Emily walked past the nightstand and saw Tyler typing quickly on his phone. She didn't breathe, didn't blink. She watched his thumbs move. Then she saw the message appear, clear as betrayal. "We need to talk," she's starting to notice. Her heart split wide open. Tyler tapped send, and Emily knew. This was only the beginning. And the next time she heard his voice behind a closed door, it wouldn't be just words that shattered her world. It would be the truth. The moment Emily opened the front door, the sound hit her like a slap, a sharp, breathy giggle coming from her bedroom. Not the TV, not a neighbor. Her bedroom. She froze, her body stiffening as every alarm in her chest flared at once. She had come home earlier than usual after leaving work sick with a headache, expecting an empty apartment. Instead, she stood in the silent entryway, holding her purse without feeling its weight. Another giggle drifted down the hall, lighter this time, playful, intimate. Her breath stuttered, her vision blurred around the edges. She stepped inside, pushed the door shut behind her without sound, and walked toward the hallway as if her feet were moving through water. The intensity in the air didn't fade. It grew thicker with every step. Halfway down the hall, she heard Tyler's low voice. Soft, warm, a tone he had not used with her in months. Then the unmistakable reply, a woman's voice. "I missed you today." Emily's heart cracked open. She reached the bedroom doorway and stopped. Tyler stood inside, his back facing her. His hand was wrapped around another woman's hand, a woman who couldn't be mistaken for anyone else. She stood close to him, leaning into him, her head tilted with familiarity. The woman turned slightly. Emily's stomach dropped. She wasn't just any woman. She was pregnant. Her belly was round, visible beneath a fitted blouse. Her hand rested protectively over it as she looked up at Tyler with a smug, knowing smile. Her name would be revealed soon, but even without knowing it yet, Emily understood one thing with total clarity. This woman was not a stranger. Not to Tyler, not to her home. Emily's fingers trembled. Her throat tightened. She felt the world tilt slightly under her feet. Tyler finally noticed her in the doorway. Instead of guilt, instead of panic, instead of shame, he stepped back from the pregnant woman and said in a voice disturbingly calm, "You need to pack your things." Emily blinked. "What?" Tyler didn't raise his voice. He didn't look away from her. He spoke as if discussing the weather. "You've been unhappy he said, rehearsed and emotionless. "And I've found someone who needs me more. It's better this way." "Better for who?" The pregnant woman stepped fully into view, her eyes drifting over Emily with open superiority. She placed her manicured hand on her belly, rubbing it slowly, as if displaying her importance. "I'm Claire," she said softly, but not kindly. Her voice carried smug confidence, marking her role clearly. The mistress, the woman who had taken Emily's husband. Emily felt her knees weaken. Claire tossed her hair back, smirking. "Tyler told me everything. How distant you two have been. How lonely you felt. We just connected. Connected." The words scraped through Emily like glass. Emily tried to breathe, but her chest felt too tight. Her world was cracking piece by piece, and all she had were questions shattering inside her. She took a step back. "Where am I supposed to go?" Tyler shrugged, actually shrugged, as if the woman he married for 4 years were a guest overstaying her welcome. "That's not my problem anymore." The finality in his tone hit harder than any scream could. Emily looked at Claire, who didn't bother to hide her satisfaction. The way she rubbed her belly made the message painfully clear. Tyler had chosen her, their future, their child. The injustice burned, the betrayal suffocated, the humiliation crushed. Emily swallowed hard, refusing to collapse before them. She would not let them see her break. "You're really doing this?" she whispered, not to win him back, but because shock made everything feel unreal. Tyler didn't flinch. "I've made my decision," he said. Claire stepped closer to him, touching his arm with gentle ownership. "We just want to start our family without tension, without her, without the wife." Emily steadied herself by holding the doorframe. This was no misunderstanding, no accident, no moment of weakness. This was intentional. And as she stood there, unable to breathe, unable to move, unable to speak, she heard Claire whisper, in a voice meant to be heard, "She'll be out tonight, right?" Emily's heart shattered. Tyler didn't answer. He didn't need to. Emily felt the final crack spreading through the life she once believed was safe. As she stepped back toward the hallway, she grabbed the nearest small suitcase from the closet with numb hands, already knowing he would not stop her. She packed what she could in silence. Documents, a few clothes, her purse, while Tyler and Claire stayed in the bedroom, not once coming to help or stop her. But as she turned slowly to leave the doorway, something in her eyes shifted, a spark of something colder and strangely steady. And when Emily stepped out of that bedroom, she had no idea that the home Tyler was throwing her out of was the very place she held silent power over, a truth about to rise from the shadows. The door slammed so violently behind Emily that the sound cut straight through her chest. It wasn't just loud, it was final, cruel, sharp like a blade. Tyler's hand had pushed the door closed with a force that made the frame rattle. She stumbled forward from the force of it, her suitcase wheels scraping against the hallway floor. For a moment she stood frozen, staring at the wood grain of the door that now separated her from the life she had built. Her own husband had pushed her out. Her home was locked behind her. Her marriage had ended with a single shove and no goodbye. The intensity of the moment swallowed the air in her lungs. Her fingers trembled around the suitcase handle. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears like a drum. And then, everything went quiet. No footsteps, no voices, no apologies, no second thoughts. Just a hollow, cold stillness. The hallway was long and empty, lit by soft yellow lamps that flickered slightly. Emily slowly sank onto her suitcase, her legs folding beneath her as if her bones could no longer hold her weight. She didn't cry. Not yet. There was too much shock pressing down on her. Her palms rested on her lap, numb. Her breathing was shallow, as though her body feared making any noise that might break the fragile control she had left. In the rush of packing, she had taken only what her hands could find quickly: some clothes, her documents folder, her purse. When her fingers brushed that familiar, thick cardboard inside her bag, she realized she had grabbed more than she consciously intended. Emily's mind drifted, not forward but backward, reaching for memories that had once given her strength, and they came like soft light cutting through darkness. She was 12 again, sitting on her father's old leather chair inside his small office. She remembered the warm scent of cedar and old papers. Her father, Richard Hamilton, looked at her with gentle eyes. He spoke the words that shaped every choice she'd made in her adult life. words she now heard with painful clarity. When someone shows you their true heart, protect your own. Back then, she didn't fully understand. Now she did. The warmth of the memory faded, replaced once again by the stale, lonely air of the hallway. Emily pulled her knees closer to her chest, resting her chin lightly on them. She stared at the closed apartment door, the same door she had walked through thousands of times with groceries, with work bags, with hopes for a future she believed she shared with Tyler. She replayed his voice in her mind. You need to pack your things. It's better this way. That's not my problem anymore. How easily he had said those things, as if ending their life together were a small decision, as if she had been a burden instead of a devoted wife, as if her love had meant nothing. Her chest tightened, but still no tears came. Shock held everything back, locking her emotions behind a wall she wasn't ready to break through yet. Minutes passed, or maybe an hour. Time had stopped meaning anything. Then Emily's hand moved on its own, slow, steady, almost automatic. She reached into her small purse, fingers brushing past tissues, lip balm, keys, until they found something solid. A folder, thick, old, slightly worn at the edges. She pulled it out and placed it gently on her lap. Hamilton Trust, beneficiary, Emily Carter, née Hamilton. The same folder she had tucked away in their bedroom drawer for years. She now remembered snatching it in those last minutes of packing, her body acting on instinct even while her mind was numb. Her inheritance, her identity, her hidden power. She stared at the label, and something tiny shifted inside her. Something not quite anger, not quite strength, but the faint spark of awakening. Tyler didn't know about this folder. He never knew she inherited the Hamilton Trust, the property company her father built from nothing. He never knew she owned multiple buildings, including this apartment complex. He never knew that every month, the rent he believed they struggled to pay went through her family trust, under her maiden name. And she had kept it that way because she believed in love. She believed in honesty. She believed in building a life based on heart, not money. But now she had seen Tyler's true heart. Her father's warning echoed louder. Emily's hands steadied. Her breathing shifted from shallow panic to slow, controlled inhales. She opened the folder with deliberate care, as though touching something sacred. Inside it were documents, property deeds, trust agreements, tenant lists, financial reports. She had avoided looking at these for years, choosing to focus on her marriage instead. But tonight felt different. Tonight the secret no longer felt like something she needed to hide. Emily leaned forward, eyes tracing the first page. Then, her eyes widened, not in fear, not in sadness, but in realization. She saw the line she had always skimmed over before. Primary beneficiary retains full authority over tenancy approval and termination for all Hamilton Trust residential properties, including Westridge Apartments. Her apartment building, Tyler's unit, Claire's new home. A realization so sharp it stole her breath. The contents of the folder reflected something she had never connected before. Something that now, in the aftermath of betrayal, made perfect, devastating sense. But the audience does not see the rest of the page. Not yet. Only Emily's expression, wide-eyed, stunned, awakening. Something inside her had clicked. Something powerful. Something dangerous. She closed the folder slowly, her lips parting in silent understanding. And in that moment, Emily realized her next step would not be to beg or to cry, but to rise. Emily pushed open the tall glass doors with a force she didn't know she had. The kind of force born from heartbreak and something dangerous rising beneath it. The doors banged slightly as they shut behind her, the sharp sound cutting through the quiet, polished lobby of the Hamilton Trust headquarters. It had been less than 48 hours since Tyler pushed her out. In that time, she had checked into a small serviced unit owned by the trust. A temporary apartment arranged easily with a single phone call to the office, using the authority she had never exercised before. The receptionist at the front desk snapped her head up. She was a woman in her early 40s, crisp suit, neat bun, alert eyes. As soon as she recognized Emily, surprise flickered across her face. "Ms. Carter," she said quickly, standing straighter. We weren't expecting you today." Emily didn't slow down. Her footsteps echoed across the marble floor, steady but cold, like someone who had just remembered what she was capable of. "I need to see Mr. Lawson," Emily said. "Yes, of course." The receptionist's voice softened into respect. "I'll let him know you've arrived." She picked up the phone immediately, her eyes following Emily with the kind of awareness only reserved for people who held real authority. Emily walked toward the elevator, her pulse steadying. The bright lights above reflected her expression, calm, controlled, but carrying the shadow of something wounded. And then, as the elevator doors closed around her, the world slowed down, pulling her into a memory she had tried to bury. The day of her father's funeral. Black clothes, silent tears, cold wind. Emily stood alone beside the burial plot after the crowd left. Mr. Lawson, her father's trust attorney and one of his oldest friends, approached her with a folder clasped tightly in his hands. He spoke gently, respectfully. "Your father left everything to you, Emily. You are the sole beneficiary of the Hamilton Trust." Emily had barely understood through the haze of grief. Lawson continued, "The properties, including the West Ridge apartment building, will fall under your direct approval once you turn 30. You're 26 now. When the time comes, everything will be yours to control." She remembered nodding numbly, not realizing how powerful those words would become. The flashback faded. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Emily stepped into a hallway lined with glass offices and silver plaques. Her name, Emily Hamilton Carter, was printed on several documents framed on the wall, commemorating her official status in the trust. When she entered Mr. Lawson's office, the older man stood from his desk immediately. He was in his 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes softened by years of loyalty to her father. "Emily," he said with warmth and concern, "you look troubled. What's happened?" Emily sat down across from him, folding her hands in her lap. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of the night before. "I need to review the tenants of the West Ridge property." Lawson's brows lifted. "That's your residential building. Everything okay at home?" Her silence answered him. He hesitated. "This includes the unit registered under your husband, correct?" Emily nodded once. "Yes." Lawson leaned back, thoughtful. "Very well. You have complete authority to review all tenant files. That's your right as the beneficiary." He rose from his chair and walked to a filing cabinet, pulling out a thick folder with a label printed neatly across the spine. West Ridge, tenant records. He laid it on the desk between them. Emily swallowed. Her eyes dropped to the folder. It felt heavier than any weight she'd ever carried. Lawson remained standing, his voice low but firm. "Emily, if there's an issue, you need to know something." She lifted her eyes to him. Lawson tapped the folder. "Your husband has violated multiple clauses in his lease." Emily's breath hitched. "What kind of violations?" she asked. Lawson pushed the folder toward her. "Serious ones. We've sent several written notices to the listed tenant over the past months. Noise complaints, an unauthorized occupant, and payment discrepancies when he tried changing bank details. All of them give you full legal authority to take action as the owner." Her fingers hovered over the folder, not opening it yet. But the spark from last night, the awakening she felt in the hallway, burned brighter. "Emily," Lawson said softly, "you can take full action. On the property, and, if you choose, on the marriage." Emily picked up the pen and signed the authorization, formally instructing Lawson to begin eviction proceedings on the unit registered under her husband's name. Her eyes widened, not in fear this time, but in realization that whatever came next was irreversible. Her eyes widened, not in fear this time, but in realization that whatever came next was irreversible. And as her fingers tightened around that folder, Emily sensed she was about to uncover truths that would reshape everything she thought she knew about her marriage. The sound of Emily's door slamming shut earlier echoed again in her mind, a violent, unforgiving memory that returned with full intensity the moment she sat at her kitchen table. Not the old apartment. This was the small, quiet, temporary unit Hamilton Trust had assigned her after she spoke with Lawson. But the memory followed her here, as if the past refused to let go. Her hands shook as she dropped a stack of documents onto the wood surface, the slam of the papers nearly as loud as the door that had thrown her out. The intensity of it all hit her like a wave. Every cruel word, every cold stare, every betrayal. She forced herself to breathe. Slowly, the frenzy softened into a deep, quiet focus. Night surrounded the apartment, filling the corners with stillness, the only light coming from a small lamp that cast long shadows across the table. But Emily wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. The dark had taught her the truth. She spread the documents out carefully, one by one, page by page. Evidence. She needed evidence, and she had more than she realized. She opened her phone and replayed the moment Tyler had shoved her out. The video existed because, when his voice first raised that night, she had instinctively hit record and slipped the phone into her pocket, a habit she'd picked up after seeing stories about women needing proof when no one believed them. The camera caught everything. Claire standing behind him with a smug smile, Tyler pushing Emily into the hallway. Her breath trembled, but she didn't look away. This was the truth now, not her love, not his vows. This. She saved the video to a secure folder and continued. Next, she pulled out the lease violation list from the trust records. Tyler had broken several clauses: subletting without permission, unauthorized occupant, property modification without approval. Claire had practically moved in behind Emily's back, without registering or seeking consent. Violation after violation. Her hand moved to another stack, financial documents she had kept over the years. Each one told a story she never wanted to admit. Tyler drained shared accounts. Tyler hid purchases. Tyler borrowed money he never repaid. Tyler relied on her to handle the bills. She had covered all of it, quietly, gently, thinking she was helping her husband. But now she saw the pattern clearly. Financial abuse was still abuse. Her jaw clenched. And suddenly, another memory crashed into her like a fist. Tyler had stood in their old living room, frustrated by a minor expense. He snapped, "You couldn't survive without me, Emily. You need me." Back then, she had believed him. Now the memory made her jaw tighten so hard it hurt. He was wrong. He had always been wrong. A knock pulled her from the memory. Emily opened the door to find Mr. Lawson, her trust attorney, standing beside a petite woman in her late 30s. Sharp suit, intelligent eyes, a calm confidence that came from years of winning battles. "Emily," Lawson said gently, "this is Ms. Hartman." Ms. Hartman extended her hand. "I'm a divorce attorney. Mr. Lawson thought you might need representation. He briefed me on the trust and the lease situation, with your permission earlier." Emily's throat tightened, but she stepped aside and let them in. Hartman sat across from her at the kitchen table, scanning the documents. She took her time, no rushing, no assumptions. Her eyes moved sharply from paper to paper, phone to file. Finally, she looked up. "Emily," she said, voice firm, "this is more than enough. You have video evidence, financial records, and legal violations. You will win everything." Emily didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply nodded. Hartman continued, "You have legal grounds not only for divorce, but for full control over all shared assets. He will be held accountable. And because you're the property owner, his eviction process will move faster than usual." Emily swallowed, her hands tightening around the edge of the table. Hartman studied her carefully. "You've been quiet for too long. Now is the time to speak." Lawson placed a supportive hand on Emily's shoulder. Hartman reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. The divorce packet. She slid it across the table, the sound sharp in the silence. The intensity of the moment returned, heavy, final, electric. Hartman met Emily's eyes, steady and strong. "Are you ready to serve him?" Emily stared at the papers. Her breath caught. Her fingers inched forward, and something inside her shifted from numbness to resolve. Because the moment Emily lifted that pen, she had no idea the confrontation waiting at the apartment would be far more dramatic than a simple delivery of documents. Emily stepped out of the black sedan with a force that shook through her legs, the kind of intensity that only heartbreak mixed with resolve could create. It had taken a short but relentless stretch of days. Legal notices drafted, records updated, and urgent court orders secured using the pile of violations and ownership documents she held. The air outside the apartment complex stung her lungs as she inhaled sharply. She wasn't alone. To her left stood Sheriff Dalton, a tall man in uniform with calm authority in his eyes. To her right stood Mr. Jacobs, the property manager of West Ridge, a quiet, middle-aged man carrying a clipboard filled with documents, including notices he had already mailed to the unit the day before. They flanked her like two silent pillars. This was not a visit. This was an execution of a decision already made. Sheriff Dalton adjusted his hat. "You ready, ma'am?" Emily nodded, though her fingers trembled slightly. The building looked the same as ever, but today it felt foreign, like a stage where a truth long hidden was finally stepping into the light. They walked down the hallway where she had once cried, once broken, but this time her footsteps were steady, sharp, decisive. They stopped in front of the door she'd been pushed out of. Sheriff Dalton knocked firmly. Bang! 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 The intensity of the sound echoed through the building, vibrating against Emily's spine. Inside, muffled voices scrambled, followed by heavy footsteps. The door swung open. Tyler Brooks stood there, irritation already twisting his face. "What now, Emily?" He folded his arms, pretending control he no longer had. Then he noticed the sheriff. His posture stiffened. Sheriff Dalton calmly opened a folder and pulled out a document. "Tyler Brooks?" "Yeah," Tyler answered, confused. The sheriff held out the paper. "You are being evicted for violations of lease terms under an emergency enforcement order." Tyler scoffed, actually laughed. "Evicted? For what? This is ridiculous." His laugh stopped abruptly when he saw the letterhead. Hamilton Trust Properties. The color drained from his face. His eyes darted from the sheriff to the property manager, to Emily standing silently behind them. "Wait!" He choked on the word. "Emily, what is this?" She stepped forward, her expression calm, almost serene, the calm of someone who had finally stopped being afraid. "You said I didn't matter," Emily said softly, "but my decisions do." Sheriff Dalton stepped aside so Tyler could see clearly. Emily didn't blink. Tyler staggered back, bumping into the wall. You own this? Since when?" Mr. Jacobs answered. "Mr. Carter has been the legal beneficiary and decision-maker for the building since her 30th birthday. All prior notices about your violations were sent to this address." Tyler looked as if the world had tilted beneath him. "This is a joke. Tell me this is a joke." Emily didn't speak. He kept rambling. No, you can't do this. I live here. I have a family now." As if summoned, Claire appeared behind him. She wore loose loungewear that showed her pregnant belly clearly. Her face twisted with panic. "What's happening?" she demanded. Tyler shoved the eviction notice at her. "She's kicking us out," he shouted. Claire turned to Emily, eyes wide and pleading. "Where are we supposed to go? I'm pregnant." Sheriff Dalton didn't flinch. "That is not the landlord's responsibility, ma'am. You were never registered as a legal occupant." Claire's voice cracked. "You can't do this." Emily's gaze didn't waver. Tyler made his choice, and he broke the rules that kept this home. Claire grabbed Tyler's arm, her voice shaking. "Do something!" Tyler turned back to Emily, resentment burning in his eyes. "You're doing this because you're bitter, because I found someone who needs me." Emily's voice remained steady. "You broke the lease. You broke our marriage. Actions have consequences." Tyler took a step toward her, fury rising. "You can't do this to me." Emily turned slowly, her face unreadable. "Watch me." The hallway went dead silent. Claire gasped. Tyler's jaw fell open. Even the sheriff's brows flicked upward. But Emily was done explaining, done defending, done breaking. Sheriff Dalton cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks, you have 48 hours to vacate the premises under this order. Failure to comply will result in forced removal and possible legal penalties." Claire whispered harshly to Tyler, "We need to fix this." "Fix it." But Tyler couldn't look away from Emily. His voice came out a broken whisper. You planned this?" Emily didn't answer, because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. And as Tyler's shocked breathing filled the hallway, Emily knew the next step would not be eviction, but the courtroom, where the truth would cut even deeper. The gavel slammed down so hard that the entire courtroom jolted, the sharp crack slicing through the murmurs of people waiting for the next case. The sound struck Tyler Brooks like lightning. His shoulders flinched, his eyes flared, and the confidence he once carried drained in an instant. Case number 3287, the judge announced firmly. Brooks versus Carter. Weeks had passed since the eviction notice, filled with filings, responses, and lawyer meetings. Today was not a surprise. It was the day everything became official. Extreme tension filled the room, tightening every breath. Emily sat beside her lawyer, Ms. Hartman, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked calm, controlled, and heartbreakingly quiet. But the strength beneath her stillness showed in the steady rise and fall of her chest. Tyler sat across from her at the opposing table, sweaty and nervous. Claire sat behind him, arms crossed over her pregnant belly, her face tight with frustration. She had come to support Tyler, but now she looked irritated just being here, glancing around as if judging the entire process. The judge adjusted his glasses. Mr. Hartman, you may proceed. Hartman rose smoothly, her voice sharp but respectful. Your Honor, today we bring forth clear documentation of unlawful eviction attempt, emotional manipulation, and financial exploitation. She placed the first piece of evidence on the screen, the hallway video, Tyler pushing Emily, Claire smirking behind him. The courtroom fell silent. Emily's breath quivered, not in fear, but in remembered pain, but she held her posture. Tyler jumped up. That's taken out of context. I didn't push her, I was... Sit down, Mr. Brooks, the judge snapped. Tyler sank back, red-faced. Hartman continued. Next, screenshots of messages where Mr. Brooks attempts to remove the legal tenant from her own residence without notice. She clicked. The messages appeared. She'll be out tonight. She won't fight back. She has nowhere to go. Claire shifted uncomfortably behind him. Tyler tried to whisper, "It was just talk." Hartman ignored him and placed the next evidence folder on the judge's bench. Lease violations, unauthorized occupant, subletting without approval, property damage responsibility, all committed by Mr. Brooks while his mistress lived there without registration. Emily kept her eyes trained on her hands, fighting the sting at the back of her throat. The judge lifted a brow. Mr. Brooks, do you have an explanation? Tyler stood, raising his palms. Your Honor, she's exaggerating. I was under stress. She was emotionally distant. Hartman cut in. If she was distant, sir, why were you living with another woman without approval and hiding funds from your wife? Gasps rose in the courtroom. Claire stiffened. What? She hissed. Hartman lifted one last document. Financial withdrawals made by Mr. Brooks from their shared account without Mrs. Carter's consent. Funds he then used to support an undisclosed relationship? Claire stood abruptly. You told me you didn't have a wife anymore. You told me she left. Tyler's face collapsed. Claire, please. But Claire shook her head, her voice sharp. You said the money problems were her fault. You lied to me. People whispered across the benches. Tyler looked like a man drowning. Hartman approached the judge one final time. Your Honor, in light of this evidence, we request full divorce, asset protection for Mrs. Carter, and reversal of financial responsibility. She has independent wealth that is separate property through her trust. We ask that he not touch a single part of it. The judge didn't hesitate. Divorce granted. Restraining order granted. Financial judgment granted. Mr. Brooks, you are barred from accessing any Hamilton Trust assets or Ms. Carter's personal accounts. You will receive no spousal support. Tyler's mouth fell open. No, please, Your Honor. The judge hit the gavel. Next case. Emily felt her breath release slowly, like she had been underwater for years and finally surfaced. Tyler stumbled toward her as she stood to leave. Emily, you can't do this. We can fix. Hartman stepped between them. Court order says you're not to approach her. Tyler froze, desperation rising. Emily didn't even look at him. She walked past, her chin lifted, her silence louder than any words she could have spoken. Outside the courthouse, people who knew Tyler, neighbors, old co-workers, acquaintances, stared at him with expressions that ranged from disappointment to disgust. Word traveled fast. The story had been whispered through the building, through the neighborhood, through mutual acquaintances. Claire stormed toward him, fury blazing in her eyes. You promised me stability. You promised me a future. You said everything was under control. Tyler lifted his hands weakly. Claire, wait. I just need time. She stepped back as if he were poison. You ruined my life too. I'm done. She turned, walked away, and didn't look back. Tyler watched her vanish down the steps, his entire life unraveling in front of him, piece by piece. Emily stood farther away, watching with unreadable eyes. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. There was no joy in watching someone fall, just justice. But justice wasn't finished yet, because Emily still had one last destination to visit, one final act that would silence every ghost Tyler left behind. The keys hit Emily's palm with a sharp metallic clink. So sudden and loud it echoed in her chest like the final strike in a long war. That sound held intensity, closure, and the last trace of the life she was stepping away from. She stood at the entrance of the apartment building, the same building where she had once been pushed out, humiliated, heartbroken. The same building where Tyler and Claire had spoken to her like she was disposable. But now, the sun poured warm light across her shoulders. The wind brushed gently against her hair. And Emily stood there, not as a victim, not as a wife discarded, but as the woman who owned the very ground beneath her feet. Her posture was straight, calm, unshaken. The building looked the same brick walls, same windows, same doors. But everything felt different now. The heaviness she once carried here had lifted, replaced by a quiet, powerful peace that wrapped around her like soft armor. Emily exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders relax. She stepped forward, the morning light catching her eyes, making them shine. This was where she fell. Now it was where she would rise. She walked toward the entrance, her footsteps soft but sure. Inside the lobby, the property manager, Mr. Jacobs, greeted her with a polite nod. He knew who she was now, not just a tenant's wife, but the beneficiary, the owner, the heartbeat of the building. "Everything is ready, Miss Carter," he said. "The paperwork has been signed. Their unit is officially vacant and under your control again." Emily gave a gentle nod. "Thank you, Mr. Jacobs." The building was quiet, peaceful, a far cry from the chaos it once held. Emily walked down the hallway she'd sat in after being pushed out. Back then, she had been numb, crushed, lost. She had thought her life was ending. She now knew it had only been shifting. She reached her old apartment door. The paint was still slightly chipped along the edges, the doorknob a little worn, a place that had once been her home. She unlocked it with the key and stepped inside. The air felt warmer than she expected. The walls were empty now. Tyler and Claire were gone. There were no memories left except the ones she carried in her heart. She walked slowly inside, touching the wall lightly, her fingers gliding across the cool surface. This was once the place where she cooked meals, folded laundry, laughed, cried, and loved. It had seen her devotion, it had seen her heartbreak, and now it would see her purpose. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, letting a soft breath escape her lips. Then she smiled. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small folder, this time not filled with evidence or legal documents, but with donation forms. A women's support program, one that helped women recovering from betrayal, emotional abuse, and sudden displacement. The same kind of pain Emily herself had endured. She handed the folder to Mr. Jacobs, who had followed her inside. "This unit," she said gently, "I want it donated to the program permanently. Let it help someone who needs a new beginning. We'll set the rent to symbolic, and the trust will cover the rest." Mr. Jacobs blinked, touched. "That's incredibly generous, Miss Carter." Emily shook her head softly. "It's necessary. Some storms are necessary. They wash away what we should have left long ago." Her voice held calm strength, the kind that comes only after surviving something that should have broken you. She walked out of the apartment for the last time, leaving its door open, a symbolic gesture of release. Emily stepped back into the sunlight, the gentle breeze lifting strands of her hair. She didn't look back. Not once. There was no reason to. As she walked down the sidewalk, every step felt lighter, her posture tall, her eyes full of quiet certainty. A faint smile touched her lips. She whispered to herself, with a voice that finally sounded whole, "He tried to destroy me, but he only revealed who I was meant to become." The camera would slowly pull away here, capturing her silhouette walking confidently into her new future, unburdened, unbroken, unstoppable. And as the final soft notes of the story faded, her narrator voice returned with gentle sincerity. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video. Unaware his wife secretly inherited her father's billion-dollar bank. Husband abandons his pregnant wife after his mistress faked a pregnancy. The next morning, the bank revelation destroyed him. He didn't just leave. He pointed at her shaking hands, at the tears she tried to blink away, at the ultrasound photo she held like it was her whole future, and he called it a trap. Then he walked out of their small, quiet apartment like it was a cage he had been planning to escape for weeks. That night, Elena Ward stood alone in the kitchen, the faint hum of the fridge, the only sound in the room. The fresh ultrasound picture trembled between her fingers. Her husband, Daniel, had just stood where she was standing now. 30, restless, bitter at his own life, suitcase in hand, eyes already turned towards someone else. "I'm not doing this," he had said, voice hard. "I won't let you tie me down with a baby I never asked for." Behind him, the front door had waited open, suitcase by his side. With one last look full of blame, he stepped into the hallway and didn't look back. He had already made up his mind long before that argument. Tonight was only the moment he finally said it out loud. He thought he was walking toward a better life, toward a younger woman who claimed she might be carrying his child, toward freedom from overdue bills, from the shame of feeling like a failure, from a wife he had convinced himself was small and too comfortable with struggle. He thought Elena would stay exactly where he left her, heartbroken, powerless, and alone with a baby on the way. What he never knew was this: the woman he just abandoned was not only his wife, she was the hidden heir to Ward National Bank, a billion-dollar institution his own coworkers joked about, a bank whose name he saw on billboards and pens and never once connected to his wife's quiet past. The same bank he would soon walk into, desperate and jobless, holding a stack of loan papers and lies, hoping for money to fund his new beginning with another woman. By the time he strutted into that bright marble lobby with Lila on his arm and confidence he didn't earn, someone else was already waiting behind those polished doors. Someone who had cried enough, broken enough, and finally decided to stand in her full power. This is not just a story about a man who chose a lie over loyalty. It's about what happens when the woman he threw away turns out to be the one holding the pen over his future, and the future of every account he thinks will save him. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elena's voice be ignored all over again. When you click that button, you stand with every abandoned woman and every unborn child she chooses to protect. Please subscribe now, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. A sharp sound breaks the silence. A wooden chest snapping shut, the echo tight and final, as if someone is locking away a secret big enough to shake an entire family. 28-year-old Elena Ward, a soft-spoken woman with calm eyes and a tired smile, presses her trembling hands on the lid of the chest. She sits alone at a small desk in her dim bedroom, surrounded by papers that look older than she is. Legal seals, bank certificates, letters in fading ink. Her heart beats hard, as if the past inside these documents is still alive and watching her. Elena is not just any woman. She is the only child of Michael Ward Sr., the founder of Ward National Bank, a billion-dollar empire he built from almost nothing. In the city, the Ward name is on tall glass buildings, pens, and billboards. People talk about the Ward family like they are distant legends, but very few know the truth, that the quiet woman who lives in this modest apartment is the real heir. Her late father raised her to live humbly, to love deeply, and to never let money control her relationships. He refused to let her grow up spoiled by wealth, even when she was old enough to understand what he owned. He still made her take part-time jobs, taught her to cook simple meals, and made her take the bus instead of private cars. 2 years ago when he died, he left her everything: the bank shares, the voting power, the right to sit as chairwoman whenever she chose to step into that role. He trusted one lawyer, Grace Hale, to keep the documents safe until Elena was ready. In his final letter, written by his own shaky hand, he told her, "This bank will be yours one day, but never let money define your marriage." That message became her rule, her shield, and maybe, without her knowing, her weakness. Elena has spent years downplaying her background. She tells people her father ran a small financial office. She hides the inheritance papers at the bottom of this chest. She never wears the expensive jewelry left for her, not even the gold ring her father gave her on her 21st birthday. She walks past Ward National Bank's main building like a stranger. To her, true love was supposed to grow from loyalty, not from money. Today, as she sorts through old letters and legal papers, she sees her father's handwriting again and feels time pull her backward. In her memory, the room brightens. Michael Ward Sr., in his 60s with gentle eyes and work-worn hands, sits beside her at this same desk. He places his rough hand over her younger, delicate one. "Elena," he whispers, "one day this bank will be yours. But promise me something. Don't choose a man who loves money. Choose a man who sees you." She remembers nodding. She remembers believing she would find that man. And she remembers exactly who she thought it was. The flashback fades as the bedroom door suddenly swings open. Daniel Ward, Elena's husband, 30, ambitious and always frustrated, steps into the room with heavy footsteps. His shirt is wrinkled from work, his tie half loosened, his face tight with stress. He works as a clerk in a mid-sized company, always feeling ignored, always afraid of staying stuck at the bottom. Daniel does not know her secret. He has never known. "Are you still going through your father's old junk?" he asks, rubbing his forehead. Elena gently closes the chest and slides the lock into place. "They're not junk, Daniel. They're memories." Daniel scoffs. "Your dad should have left you something real, not letters in some small office no one's heard of." He waves a hand. "We need actual help right now. Bills are drowning us." There it is, the intentional ignorance. The reason he never guessed the truth. When they were dating, Elena had told him her father ran a modest, independent financial office. Once a coworker joked, "Ward? Like Ward National Bank?" Daniel had laughed and repeated the joke to her, and she'd shrugged and answered, "I wish. Different ward, different world." He never asked again. She stands and lays a gentle hand on his arm. "I know things are hard, Daniel, but we'll get through it." She offers comfort, not money, because revealing the inheritance now, revealing everything, would feel like breaking the promise she made to her father. She wants Daniel to love her for who she is, not what she owns. But Daniel pulls his arm away. "I'm tired of struggling. I'm tired of feeling like a nobody. Everything is on my shoulders and you want me to just get through it." He leaves the room before she can respond, his footsteps echoing down the hallway like warnings she refuses to hear. Elena exhales slowly, her body heavy with secrets. Her phone buzzes quietly. On the screen appears Rena Lopez, 29, her best friend since childhood, and now an accountant in the same company where Daniel works. Bold, protective, and always 2 steps ahead, Rena has seen more of Daniel's work self than Elena has recently. Elena steps out of the bedroom and answers in a whisper. "Hi, Rena." Rena doesn't waste time. "Did you decide what to do with your inheritance yet? Grace told me your father's papers are still untouched. You can't hide it forever." Elena glances toward the hallway, making sure Daniel's out of earshot. "Not yet," she whispers. "He's not ready to know." Rena exhales sharply. "Elena, keeping this secret is going to come back around, and not in a good way." Elena's eyes drop to her stomach, though no one knows the truth yet. Not Rena, not even Daniel. She presses her palm over it softly, almost protectively. "I know," she says quietly. "I just need a little more time." Rena pauses, her tone shifting. "Elena, something feels off. Daniel's been acting strange at work, more closed off, more annoyed. He's been staying late even when there's no overtime." Elena tenses. "Strange how?" Before Rena can answer, a loud thud echoes from the living room. Daniel dropping something heavy on the table, maybe his briefcase, maybe another stack of unpaid bills. A chill crawls up Elena's spine. Rena whispers through the phone, "Elena, you need to be careful. Something is coming." A tight whisper in Elena's mind as she slides the wooden chest back under the bed. What could Daniel be hiding? And why does it already feel dangerous? Daniel slams his hand against his cluttered desk so hard that pens jump and papers flutter to the floor. His 30-year-old face is tight with frustration, his jaw clenched until a muscle jumps beneath his skin. Around him, co-workers lift their heads, startled. From the outside, he looks like a man drowning in his own life. This is Daniel's world. A small, noisy, open-plan office full of ringing phones, clicking keyboards, and people pretending they're happy with their paychecks. Daniel is a clerk in the accounts department, underpaid, overlooked, and tired of feeling stuck. The weight of unpaid bills, a failing car, and the fear of becoming a father he doesn't feel ready to be presses on his chest. He feels small, and he hates it. At the next desk, Tyler Hale, 32, spins slowly in his chair. Tyler calls himself a problem fixer, but in truth, he is the kind of man who lives fast, talks fast, and always has a shortcut that looks good at first and burns later. On the other side sits Evan Morris, 29, timid and easily influenced, always watching, rarely speaking. "Rough morning already?" Tyler asks with a smirk. Daniel rubs his forehead. "Everything's falling apart. Rent, bills, the car. I can't keep doing this, man." Tyler leans back, folding his arms behind his head like life is easy. "You don't need to keep doing this. You need better options, real options." Daniel scoffs. "Easy for you to say. You don't have a landlord breathing down your neck." Tyler's smirk widens. "Who said I'm talking about 9 to 5 options?" Before Daniel can respond, the break room door swings open. That's when Lila Moreno walks in. She's 27, polished, confident, with dark curls and eyes that seem to find a person's weak spot in seconds. She's not a coworker. She sometimes does consulting for Tyler's side projects, the kind he never explains in detail. Lila's the type of woman who understands power, attention, and how to use both. She steps into the office like she owns the air. "This is her," Tyler announces proudly. "Lila, the friend I told you about, the one who helps people fix their lives." Evan shifts nervously and pretends to focus on his screen. Daniel stares, confused but curious. Lila gives Daniel a soft smile, warm in a way that feels too intense for a first meeting. "Tyler says you're going through a lot. I help people find better paths, ways to stop feeling stuck." Daniel laughs bitterly. "Unless you've got a stack of cash hidden in your purse, I doubt you can help me." Lila's eyes glimmer. "Not cash, opportunities." Her voice is low, smooth, careful, and Daniel doesn't look away, to avoid the question of, why would Daniel fall for her so easily? The story shows exactly what is twisting inside him. Years of living in a small apartment while seeing richer clients every day. Years of feeling like Elena deserved more than he could give, even though she never asked. Years of pride turning into shame every time he looked at unpaid bills. He tells himself that Elena is too calm about their struggles, that she doesn't understand the pressure on him. He doesn't see her quiet strength. He only sees his own fear. Earlier that day, Elena had stopped by the office with a small container of homemade food. She'd waited in the lobby for 10 minutes until Tyler called Daniel down. When he saw her, Daniel had felt two emotions at once: love and embarrassment. "Hey," she had said gently, offering him the food. "I thought you might not have eaten." He'd glanced over his shoulder, seen Tyler and Evan watching from the glass doors, and his pride had flared. "I don't want to look like a kid whose wife has to feed him," he'd snapped. "Just go home. I'm busy." He hadn't meant it to sound cruel, but Elena had walked away hurt anyway. Now in the echo of that moment, Lila steps into the empty space he created. She leans against Tyler's desk, her attention fixed on Daniel. "Sometimes," she says, "men give everything to women who don't really see what they're carrying. They stay small for them." Daniel's eyes flicker. Hurt, insecurity, wounded pride, all mixing. Tyler grins. "You two should talk after work. Lila's helped guys out of tighter spots than yours." Evan shifts again, uneasy, but says nothing. Lila takes a step closer, resting a light hand on Daniel's arm. "You deserve to feel important, Daniel, not trapped." This time he doesn't pull away. He doesn't realize that at this exact moment, without saying a single cruel word to Elena, he has taken the first step away from her. Daniel's phone vibrates on his desk. He glances down. "Elena, are you okay? You left so quickly this morning." He turns the phone face down so no one can see the screen, especially Lila. But Lila notices anyway. She notices the way his hand tightens, the way his eyes cloud for a second. Some men, she says softly, spend their whole lives trying to be enough for people who only see their failures. Daniel swallows hard. He doesn't answer Elena's message. He just slips the phone into his pocket. Hours later, as he leaves the office, his thoughts spin. The seed of betrayal has been planted, small but alive. Lila walks beside him down the sidewalk, her perfume surrounding him, her voice a low whisper in his ear. "Some women out there," she says, "would do anything for a man like you." Daniel freezes, and for the first time, he doesn't think of Elena. As he walks away with Lila, his phone buzzes again in his pocket. Elena trying once more to reach the man who is already halfway gone. This time he lets it ring. A loud, rapid thump-thump fills the dim ultrasound room. The sound is sharp and steady, echoing off the walls. Tiny fists knocking on the world for the first time. Elena lies on the examination table, eyes wide, tears gathering fast. Her fingers twist in the thin blanket draped over her lap, knuckles turning white. Nurse Carla Jennings, early 40s, calm and kind, moves the probe gently across Elena's lower stomach. Carla has done this hundreds of times, but she still treats each heartbeat like it matters. "That," Carla says softly, her eyes warm, "is your baby's heartbeat." Elena's breath stutters. A tear slips down, then another. The sound is beautiful, strong, alive, real. Joy rushes into her chest, crashing against a heavy fear she can't push away. She wishes Daniel were here. She imagines his hand in hers, his voice whispering that he's ready, that they're in this together, but the chair beside her is empty. He said he had to stay late again. Elena swallows and stares at the screen. A tiny flicker appears. The small shape of a growing life. Carla smiles. "Your baby is measuring well. Everything looks healthy. Congratulations." The word congratulations cracks something open inside Elena. She presses her hand to her mouth to keep a sob from escaping. "I didn't think this would happen," she whispers. "Not now. Not with everything going on." Carla nods like she understands more than Elena says. Life doesn't wait for perfect moments. It just shows up and asks what kind of parent you're going to be. The line hits Elena deeper than she expects, because lately, everything has felt unstable. The tension slowly softens into a quiet, emotional stillness. Later, Elena sits in the clinic lobby, fully dressed, holding the fresh ultrasound photo between her fingers like it's made of glass. The world moves around her, people talking, doors opening and closing, but she feels outside of it all. She stares at the small shape printed on the glossy paper. Tiny, fragile, innocent. A little life that has done nothing but exist. Her thoughts drift back to her childhood, sitting on her father's shoulders as he walked through a park, listening as he talked about leadership, responsibility, and love. He used to say, "The best thing a parent leaves behind is not money, Elena. It's love. Money can be taken. Love, never." Elena traces the edge of the ultrasound photo with her thumb. "You'll have all the love in the world," she whispers to the picture. "I promise." She thinks of Daniel, how his eyes have started to avoid hers, how his answers have become shorter, how he snaps over small things like food and phone calls. But she believes, deep down, that the news of their baby will bring him back to her, that when he sees the photo, hears the heartbeat, everything will shift. He has to remember who they are together. He has to. With hopeful, shaking hands, she pulls out her phone. She types, "I have wonderful news. Can we talk tonight?" She stares at the screen, waiting. A minute, then 2, then 5. Finally, his reply appears. "Daniel, busy, maybe later." The words hit her like cold water. No question, no curiosity, no warmth, just distance. From across the lobby, Carla watches Elena's shoulders sag. She walks over quietly, sitting next to her. "Everything okay?" Carla asks gently. Elena forces a small smile. "Yes, he's just busy with work." But inside, a cold worry spreads. Because this isn't the Daniel she first fell in love with. This is someone who is slipping away before their child is even born. She folds the ultrasound photo carefully, places it in her purse, and stands up, resting a protective hand over her stomach. As Elena walks toward the exit, Carla calls after her, "Take care of yourself, Elena, and take care of that little heartbeat." Elena nods, but her eyes reveal the truth. Something is wrong, and she feels it. As she steps outside, her phone buzzes again. Not from Daniel, but from Rena. A new message appears on the screen. "We need to talk about Daniel. Something's not right." A few weeks have passed since Lila first walked into Daniel's office life. Late-night messages, secret coffees, and one reckless night in her apartment have crossed every line he once thought he'd never cross. Now, as Daniel steps out of the office building after another long day, Lila grabs his wrist on the sidewalk with surprising force. Her eyes are wide, her breathing fast, as if she's been replaying one sentence in her mind all afternoon. "Daniel, please," she says, voice shaking just enough to sound believable. "Come with me. Now." Daniel's heart jumps. Lila is usually smooth, flirtatious, in control. Today she looks panicked, urgent, scared. He follows before his brain catches up. They reach a small medical clinic a few blocks away. White walls, bright lights, quiet hallways. The smell of disinfectant hangs in the air. Lila pushes the door open and walks straight to the reception desk, one hand pressed dramatically against her stomach. "I think I'm late," she says loudly. Behind the desk sits Megan Riley, 25, soft-spoken and observant. She has worked here for 3 years. She knows how real fear looks, and she knows when someone is putting on a show. "Name?" Megan asks calmly. Lila hands over her ID without looking at Daniel. Her shoulders are tense, but her eyes are sharp, constantly checking his reaction. Daniel stands frozen behind her. His mind races. Bills. Rent. The ultrasound Elena showed him earlier that week in his imagination. Though she hasn't yet. The pressure he already feels. Not more responsibility. Not another life depending on me. "Daniel," Lila says softly, turning toward him, hands still on her stomach. "I didn't want to scare you, but I think I'm pregnant." The words hit him like a punch to the chest. "Pregnant?" he stammers. "Are you sure? I mean, how do you know?" Lila lowers her eyes, playing the part perfectly. "Because I know my body. I'm never late like this. You know what that means." The truth. She is not late. Her app shows her cycle is perfectly normal, but Daniel doesn't know that. Megan hands Lila a clipboard. "Please fill this out. We'll do a test and speak with you." Lila nods, taking the form with trembling fingers that are only half fake. Daniel runs a hand through his hair, pacing slowly. "This can't be happening. Elena will—" "I'm not like your wife," Lila cuts in, her voice low so only he hears. "I don't want to trap you. If this is real, I'll figure it out. I just needed you to know." Her words wrap around his deepest fear, that every problem in his life is another chain. To show why Daniel believes her so quickly, the story sits inside his fears. He remembers the small apartment he comes home to, the peeling paint, the humming fridge, the envelope of unpaid bills on the table. He remembers Elena's calm face when she says they'll manage somehow. To her, struggle feels familiar. To him, it feels like failure. He thinks of the life he thinks he deserves, a nicer car, a better home, being respected instead of pitied. Lila has spent weeks whispering that version of his future into his ear. Now she adds one more hook. "I would never use a baby to lock you down," she says, eyes shining. "If you stay with me, it's because you choose me, not because I force you." Daniel's chest tightens. He doesn't notice that every sentence starts with "I." He only notices that she is offering him something Elena never did, a story where he is the one in control. Lila sits to fill out the clinic form and quietly slides her phone under the clipboard. Megan, from her desk, catches a glimpse of the screen. A period tracking app, dates neatly recorded, nothing late, nothing unusual. Lila's thumb hovers over the entries. Delete, delete, delete. In seconds, she creates the illusion of being weeks behind. Megan's brows pinch for a brief moment. She says nothing, but something in her professional mind takes note. And later, when a private investigator comes with a legal request, that memory will matter. Lila finishes the form and stands. "Here," she says to Megan, voice trembling. I need to know for sure. Megan nods. We'll call you in a moment. Daniel paces the waiting area, running through every dark thought. I can't handle this, he whispers to himself. I can't afford another burden. I can barely breathe as it is. Lila looks up at him, eyes glassy and perfect. Maybe this is a sign, she says quietly. Maybe life is telling you that you're meant for something different, that you shouldn't spend your whole life with someone who doesn't understand your dreams. He stops pacing. He thinks of Elena bringing him homemade lunch, of the old chest she keeps in their bedroom, of the way she always talks about enough instead of more. He twists those memories into a story where she is the problem and not his own pride. For the first time, he lets a new thought in. Maybe Elena isn't the future I want. Just as Megan calls Lila's name to go for the test, Daniel's phone buzzes. Elena. Daniel, can you come home early tonight? I really need you. It's important. He stares at the message. He doesn't reply. Lila leans close, lips almost brushing his ear. Whatever happens today, she whispers, we'll handle it together. You don't have to stay where you feel trapped. He exhales shakily, half fear, half temptation, and he follows her deeper into the clinic. Not knowing this lie is about to push him into the worst decision of his life. As Megan watches them disappear down the hallway, she frowns and murmurs to herself, this is going to end badly, for someone who doesn't deserve it. The front door slams so hard the walls shake. Daniel storms into the small living room, his face red with a mix of anger and panic. His breath comes fast and uneven. In his fist, he clutches his car keys so tightly that the metal digs into his skin. He hurls them to the floor. They skid across the tiles and crash into the baseboard. Elena flinches at the sound. She stands in the kitchen doorway, wearing a soft sweater, her hands instinctively covering her stomach. She spent the last hour preparing a simple dinner, and on the table behind her sits a small gift box with a ribbon. Inside, folded carefully, is the ultrasound photo. She had planned to tell him the news with a smile, a hug, and a heartbeat, but his rage swallows the warmth. What's wrong? She asked quietly, voice already shaking. Daniel? What happened? Daniel turns on her, eyes wild. Don't pretend you don't know. Elena blinks, genuinely confused. I don't. Please talk to me. He steps closer, pointing a finger at her chest. You're trying to trap me, aren't you? You and your little secrets. You think a baby will fix everything. Her heart stops. Trap you? Daniel, what are you talking about? His breathing grows harsher. He hears Lila's words replaying in his head. Some women use babies to lock men into lives they hate. He mixes those words with the unknown message Elena sent earlier, the one about wonderful news. He makes a decision without asking a single question. It doesn't matter who said it, he snaps. What matters is, I'm done being the fool. I'm done being tied down to a life I never chose. Tears prick Elena's eyes. Daniel, I was going to tell you something tonight. Something beautiful. Please, just listen. He lets out a cold laugh. Beautiful? Let me guess. Something that makes sure I never leave this place? Her throat tightens. Slowly, with shaking fingers, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out the ultrasound photo. She doesn't give the speech she rehearsed. She doesn't open the gift box. She simply holds the photo toward him. I'm pregnant, she whispers. The room goes silent. Daniel stares at the photo, at the tiny shape, the black and white image of the child he helped create. For a brief second, something soft flashes in his eyes. Then fear crushes it. Not joy, not love. Fear. Elena watches him, waiting for anything. A smile, a tear, a word of comfort. Instead, Daniel takes a step back, as if she just handed him a threat. I knew it, he mutters. You're just like everyone warned me, trying to lock me in. Her voice breaks. Daniel, no. I didn't trap you. I only found out today. I was happy. I wanted to share this with you. He shakes his head, words tumbling out fast. I can't do this. I can't be chained to a kid. I'm already drowning, Elena. I can't breathe in this life. And now you want me to pretend I'm excited? Tears spill down her cheeks. You're the father. This is our child. Please, don't talk like this. I don't want this, he says. Almost everything inside her breaks at once. Her mind pulls her into a sudden flashback. She is younger, sitting on a porch swing beside her father. The evening sky is orange, the air gentle. Michael Ward Sr. looks tired from work but peaceful. Choose a man who sees your worth before the world does, he tells her. Some men will only value what they can take. Your time, your energy, your loyalty. Don't give them your future too. Back then she smiled and said, I will. Now as she looks at Daniel, the man she chose, she sees the warning made real. Daniel marches to the closet and yanks out a suitcase. Elena stares, stunned, as he throws clothes into it in rough handfuls. Daniel, please, she sobs. Don't leave like this. We can talk. We can get help. We can figure out the money. I'll go back to work full time. There's nothing to fix, he says flatly. I don't want this life. I don't want this baby. I'm done. He zips the suitcase shut. Elena reaches for his arm with trembling hands. Don't walk out on your child. Even if you're angry with me, he jerks away. You'll be fine. You always are. You have your quiet little world. Keep it. The front door swings open. Standing there is Mrs. Havers, their landlord, early 60s, carrying a basket of folded towels. She had been about to knock, but the sound of shouting froze her in place. Daniel, she asked softly, what's going on? Are you leaving? He doesn't even look at her. I'm done, he says, pushing past. I won't be back. His footsteps echo down the hallway. Mrs. Havers turns to Elena, shocked. He said he won't be back, she whispers, almost as if she doesn't believe it herself. The words bounce around Elena's mind like broken glass. Won't be back, won't be back, won't be back. Her knees give out, and she collapses into the nearest chair, clutching the ultrasound photo to her chest. Silent sobs shake her whole body as the home she built with him feels suddenly hollow. Mrs. Havers sets the towel basket down and kneels beside her. Child, she says gently, laying a comforting hand on her shoulder, you can't carry this alone. Your father trusted a good lawyer, remember? That woman who came to the funeral? Grace? You need to talk to someone like that. Someone who knows your worth. Elena swallows hard, tears blurring her vision. For the first time since Daniel walked out, the name Grace Hale feels less like a distant contact and more like a lifeline. As the apartment falls quiet, the ultrasound photo rests on the table beside Elena's phone. And on the screen, an unread message from Rena waits. Call me as soon as you can. It's about Daniel. The heavy glass door of the law office swings inward as Elena pushes it with more force than she intended. Her breath is uneven. Her eyes are swollen and red. One hand grips the ultrasound photo so tightly the edges are bent. The other clutches her small handbag like it's the only thing holding her together. Her world has just split in two, before Daniel walked out and after. A receptionist looks up in surprise, then softens. Mrs. Ward, Ms. Hale is expecting you. You can go right in. Elena nods silently and walks down the quiet hallway. Every step echoes like a reminder. He left. He really left. She reaches the office door marked, Grace Hale, Family Law and Estate. She knocks once, then opens it. Inside, attorney Grace Hale, mid-40s, sits behind a large oak desk. She has calm eyes, a quiet strength in the way she holds herself, and an air of someone used to carrying other people's storms without being overwhelmed by them. Elena, Grace says softly, standing. Come in. Sit down. As soon as Elena lowers herself into the chair, the dam breaks. Her shoulders shake, tears spilling fast. She covers her mouth to keep from sobbing too loudly. Grace doesn't rush her. She waits, hands folded, letting Elena breathe and break at her own pace. When Elena finally manages to speak, her words come out in fragments. He left, she whispers. Daniel packed a suitcase and walked out. He said he won't come back. He said he doesn't want the baby. She opens her hand and places the wrinkled ultrasound photo on Grace's desk. Grace looks at it for a moment, her expression softening, then lifts her eyes back to Elena. I am so sorry, she says quietly. No one deserves that, especially not while carrying a child. Elena wipes her tears with the back of her hand. I thought he loved me. I thought we were just going through a hard time. Grace leans forward slightly. Elena, I need to ask you something important, and I want you to answer with your heart, not your hope. Elena swallows. Do you truly want this man involved in your child's future? The question slices through the room. Elena closes her eyes. She sees Daniel's face. Not the man who once held her hand in crowded buses and laughed with her on cheap date nights, but the man who called their baby a trap and walked out without looking back. Her voice is small but steady. No, she says. I don't. Grace nods like she expected that answer. Grace stands and walks to a tall metal file cabinet in the corner. She unlocks it, slides open a drawer, and reaches inside to pull out a thick, sealed folder tied with a ribbon. She carries it back to the desk and sets it gently in front of Elena. This, Grace says, is something your father asked me to keep safe for you. Elena's breath catches. My father? Grace nods. 2 years ago, before he passed, Michael came to see me. He knew his health was failing. He told me about Ward National Bank, about the shares, about the control clauses. He also told me one more thing, that he didn't want the world to know who his heir was until you were ready. Tears rise again in Elena's eyes, but this time they're mixed with something else. A deep ache for the man she lost. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She whispers. Grace's gaze is gentle but firm. Because your father gave me clear instructions. He said I was to reveal the full extent of your inheritance only if one of two things happened. You chose to take your place at the bank, or you came to me because someone threatened your future. She pauses, letting the weight of that sink in. When you called me last night, Grace continues, and I heard your voice break. I knew the moment he was afraid of had arrived. Elena looks down at the folder. Her hands shake as she reaches for the ribbon. Grace unties the ribbon and opens the folder. Inside, neatly arranged, are legal documents, bank contracts, share certificates, and letters with Michael's familiar handwriting. Each page is a piece of a life she's tried to pretend she didn't have. Grace turns the first page toward Elena and taps it lightly. Your father left you majority control of Ward National Bank, she explains. Not just shares, not just a small percentage, majority. On paper and legal terms, you are the controlling owner. The board has been honoring his request to keep your identity private. The CEO manages daily operations, but you hold the real power. Elena stares, stunned. I own it? You are it, Grace says softly. Daniel doesn't know who he walked away from. He left a woman he thought was powerless. He doesn't realize he left the chairwoman of the bank he is about to need. Elena's heart pounds. For a moment, everything tilts. She sees herself not as the abandoned wife, but as someone her father trusted with an entire legacy. Before she can form words, a sudden knock lands sharply on the office door. Grace frowns. Come in. The door opens and investigator Jonah Pierce, mid-30s, tall and composed, steps inside. He carries a neutral expression, but his eyes are sharp, the kind that notice everything and forget nothing. Grace, he says, sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. He looks at Elena with quiet respect. Mrs. Ward, I'm Jonah. Your father hired me years ago for due diligence cases at the bank. Grace asked me to look into Daniel after your call. Elena's fingers tighten around the edge of the folder. What did you find? She asks. Jonah steps closer and places a sealed envelope on the desk. Information about Daniel, he says calmly, and about the woman he left you for. His next words freeze Elena completely. You need to see this. It changes everything. Grace closes the inheritance folder gently, leaving it beside the new envelope. Two parts of Elena's life, her past and her present, now sit side by side, waiting to be opened. Investigator Jonah Pierce drops the thick envelope onto Grace's desk. The sound is sharp, making Elena flinch. Grace sits beside her now, not across from her, a quiet sign that she is on Elena's side. Elena, Jonah says, his voice steady, what I'm about to show you will hurt, but knowing the truth will help you make clean decisions. Elena nods, though her hands are shaking. I want to know. Jonah slides the envelope toward her. She opens it, pulling out a stack of printed screenshots. The first page is full of message bubbles. At the top, Lila Moreno. Underneath, Daniel Ward. Elena reads slowly, Lila. You deserve better than a life of struggle. You shouldn't be stuck with someone who holds you back. Daniel. I feel trapped. She doesn't understand what I want. You do. Lila. I would never trap you. I'd give you freedom, not chains. Elena's chest tightens. Her eyes blur, but she forces herself to read. Lila. If something happens, if we have a baby, I'll never use it against you. Daniel. Anything is better than this life. I just want out. Elena lowers the paper, tears spilling silently. Jonah's voice is gentle. These were pulled from his work phone. Rena helped. She saw him using the phone carelessly and alerted us. She gave written permission for the IT team to retrieve recent deleted messages he sent over company systems. That's how we got these. Grace squeezes Elena's shoulder. You're not crazy, she says softly. He really was looking for a way out. Jonah pulls out another set of documents, this time typed statements and notes. This, he says, is from Megan Riley, the clinic receptionist. Elena frowns, trying to place the name. Jonah explains, she's the one who checked in Lila the day she dragged Daniel to the clinic. He hands Elena the page. Elena reads, Patient Lila Moreno claims she might be pregnant. She appeared more focused on the man with her than on the actual consultation. She requested a test but left before we could perform or confirm anything. Her menstrual tracking app, which she had open while filling forms, did not show a missed period at that time. Elena looks up stunned. So, she never had proof? Jonah nods. There is no medical record of a positive test, no follow-up appointments. Her so-called pregnancy was built on timing, performance, and emotional pressure. He sets down a photo, a still from the clinic's security footage. Lila sits in the waiting room, tilting her phone under the clipboard. Even in the grainy image, you can see her deleting entries, then clutching her stomach as Daniel watches. Elena's fingers tremble as she covers her mouth. A sob escapes. It was all a lie, she whispers. She lied about a baby, and he believed her more than he believed me. And our real child. Grace leans closer. That is not a reflection of your worth, she says. It is a reflection of his choices. Elena stares at the evidence. Messages, statements, photos. She remembers the look in Daniel's eyes when she showed him the ultrasound. How quickly he called it a trap. How fast he grabbed a suitcase. He never asked her for the truth. He never asked anyone. He chose the story that allowed him to run. Her father's voice echoes in her mind again. Some men only value what they can take. When they're done taking, they leave. She inhales slowly, wiping her tears with controlled movements. I needed to see this, she says quietly. I needed to stop wondering if I pushed him away. You didn't, Jonah says simply. He was already walking out. Lila just gave him a shortcut. Jonah reaches back into the envelope and pulls out one more document. This last piece, he says, is where your worlds cross, your marriage and your bank. He slides the paper to Elena. It's a printed online form from Ward National Bank's internal loan system, flagged by the bank's risk team and forwarded to Grace because of the Ward family name attached. At the top, applicant Daniel Ward, requested amount high, stated purpose, new business venture, joint future plans. In the section labeled marital status, Daniel has checked the box and typed, separated, preparing to remarry. Elena's heart stumbles. Preparing to remarry, she whispers. He submitted this yesterday, Jonah explains. He used your surname and your landlord's address for credibility, and he hinted he had a powerful connection who would soon be irrelevant. Risk flagged it because of the Ward name. That's how it landed in front of us so fast. Elena feels something inside her shift, a line that can't be uncrossed. She is no longer looking at her husband. She is looking at a man who has already started rearranging his life as if she and the child never existed. Jonah studies her carefully. So here's the question, Elena. Now that you know all this, do you want to handle it quietly? Just legal proceedings? No exposure? He pauses. Or do you want the truth to stand in daylight where he can't twist it? Grace watches Elena's face. Elena stares at the loan application, sees the word remarry, feels the ultrasound photo in her bag, feels her father's folder beside her. When she answers, her voice is low but clear. Tomorrow, he walks into a bank believing they don't know who I am. She lifts her chin. I want him to see the truth where he cannot spin it, not in private, in public. Jonah's eyes narrow, impressed. Grace gives a small, proud nod. This, Grace says, will be painful for him. Elena's gaze does not waver. He made choices, she says. Let him meet the consequences. Jonah gathers the papers and slips them back into the envelope, leaving one copy for court. Then we'll arrange it, he says. The branch has already scheduled him for an in-person review because of the loan size. We'll make sure you're there. Not as his wife, but as the bank's true chairwoman. Elena exhales slowly. Grace closes Michael Ward's inheritance folder and sets it beside the envelope of Daniel's lies. Tomorrow morning, Grace says quietly, you won't be the one begging anymore. As Elena leaves the office that evening, a black sedan from the bank's fleet waits at the curb, ready to pick her up at sunrise the next day. A stack of papers slams onto the small dining table in Elena's apartment. The sound echoes in the quiet room like the starting shot of a race that can't be stopped. Elena stands over the table, breathing slowly, her movements careful, controlled. The redness in her eyes has faded to a steady firmness. The ultrasound photo sits beside the inheritance folder in a neat pile of legal documents. Across from her sits Rena Lopez, 29. Her dark hair is pulled back, and her eyes hold a mix of anger and fierce loyalty. She has changed out of her work clothes into a simple sweater, but the energy around her is the same, protective and sharp. Elena, Rena says softly, I still can't believe he walked out like that. But I'm proud of you for going to Grace. Your father would be too. Elena doesn't cry, not anymore. Her face is calm, almost too calm. The kind of calm that comes after a heart breaks, heals over, and turns into armor. She starts organizing the papers into sections. Divorce petition, custody filings, financial evidence. Each page feels less like paper and more like a piece of a boundary she should have set long ago. Are you sure, Rena asks, that you want to face him in public? At the bank? Elena pauses, then looks up slowly. This is not about revenge, she says. It's about truth. He chose to lie in public. He chose to apply for a loan using my name and my landlord's trust. He brought this into the open first. I'm just finishing what he started. Rena studies her for a moment, then nods. It's not mercy you're giving him, Rena says. It's reality. As Elena folds another document, her mind drifts to softer days. Evenings when she and Daniel dreamed about a little cafe of their own. Mornings when he woke her with coffee and jokes. Nights when money was tight, but they held each other like that made them rich. She remembers the promise rings, the whispered vows, the way he used to say, we'll make it, even if we start from nothing. She wonders when we turned into I for him. She remembers his face when she told him about the baby, the anger, the fear, the accusation. She remembers him calling their child a trap and walking out anyway. Her father's warning runs through her mind again like a quiet line of truth. Choose a man who sees your worth before the world does. She thought she had. She was wrong. Now, she isn't just a wife. She's a mother. She's an heir. She's a woman finally willing to step into the power she never wanted to use. Rena places a hand over Elena's. You don't deserve what he did, Rena says, and he doesn't deserve to keep living like he's the victim. Elena nods once. He won't. Rena leans back in her chair, folding her arms. Does he still have no idea about the bank? About what you really own? Elena closes the folder and slides it into a sleek leather envelope from Grace's office. The motion is slow, deliberate, like sealing a door that will not reopen. No, Elena says quietly. To him, I'm still the woman from the small financial office family. Tomorrow he meets the truth. Rena lets out a low whistle. He's walking into that bank thinking they'll save him. Tomorrow, Elena replies, he learns that the person he abandoned is the one reviewing his future. She stands, gathering the documents, and places them in her bag. In the corner of the room, the lamp casts her shadow against the wall. Not small, not fragile, but tall and defined. Suddenly, her phone buzzes on the table. A message from an unknown number. She taps it open. A photo appears. Daniel and Lila at dinner, his arm around her shoulders, both of them smiling like nothing in the world is wrong. Timestamp, Tonight, Rena gasps. He's out celebrating while you're here picking up the pieces. Elena's jaw tightens. Her eyes harden. No, she says softly. I'm not picking up pieces. I'm building something new. She looks at the photo one last time, then locks her phone. Tomorrow morning, she whispers, more to herself than to anyone else, he will lose everything he thought he could use to erase us. Outside the apartment window, headlights flash. The black bank car waiting beneath the streetlight, ready to drive Elena to Ward National Bank at sunrise. Daniel Ward pushes open the glass doors of Ward National Bank's main branch with a kind of confidence he hasn't felt in weeks. He pulls Lila's hand as they walk in together. His chin is lifted, his chest puffed out. He clutches a folder of loan documents, printouts, and plans, the blueprint of the new life he believes he deserves. Lila walks beside him in a new dress he helped pay for with borrowed money. She smiles, but her fingers tap against her purse nervously. She likes the idea of this future, but deep down she knows it depends on one thing: the bank saying yes. The lobby is wide and bright, with polished floors, quiet conversations, and the soft hum of printers and counting machines. People stand in elegant lines talking softly. Daniel steps up to the front reception. I'm here for a high-value loan appointment, he says. I submitted everything last night. They said a senior officer would review it. The banker behind the desk, Colin Rivers, late 20s, checks his screen. His expression shifts almost invisibly when he sees the name. Yes, Mr. Ward, Colin says. Your request is marked as high risk due to the amount and your current employment status. Our protocol is that the chairwoman personally reviews cases that touch the Ward family name. Daniel snorts. Chairwoman? Fine. Whoever she is, she'll see I'm serious. I've got plans now. He glances at Lila, as if expecting her to glow with pride. She forces a smile. Two security officers, both tall, both in dark suits, step a bit closer, not aggressive, but alert. Please wait here, sir, one of them says. The chairwoman has already been notified. Daniel frowns. Is all this really necessary? I'm not asking for charity. I'm offering a solid business plan. Colin's voice stays polite. Of course, sir. It's just procedure. Before Daniel can respond, another voice cuts in from behind him, clipped and annoyed. Procedure? He used our company name as leverage for this loan. Daniel stiffens and turns. Standing a few feet away is Roger Kemp, his boss, early 50s, in a tailored suit. Roger's jaws tight. His presence alone makes nearby employees straighten. Mr. Kemp? Daniel stammers. What are you doing here? Roger holds up a printed email. I was called by the bank's risk department. You tried to present your employment and our company as financial backing for a personal loan of this size without authorization. That is a serious breach. Daniel's face drains of color. I just mentioned I was valued at the company. You lied, Roger says flatly. We'll deal with this after your appointment with the chairwoman. The air thickens. People nearby fall silent, sensing something heavy unfolding. Then the double doors at the far end of the lobby open. Everyone turns. Walking through those doors is Elena Ward. She is dressed in a fitted, simple suit with no flashy jewelry, her hair pulled back neatly. But there is something different about her now. A quiet authority in each step, a calmness that doesn't beg or bend. The slight swell of her pregnancy is visible beneath the jacket, but it doesn't make her look vulnerable. It makes her look unshakable. Colin straightens. Madam Chairwoman. Security steps respectfully aside. Staff lower their gazes. Even Roger shifts to give her room. Daniel's mouth falls open. Elena, he breathes. She stops several feet in front of him, her expression unreadable. Colin addresses her. This is Mr. Daniel Ward, here for the high-value loan application we discussed. Daniel looks from Colin to Elena, confusion battling panic. Chairwoman, what is he talking about? Elena, what are you doing here? She looks him in the eyes, not as his wife, not as the woman who cried on their kitchen floor, but as the person her father raised her to be. I am the chairwoman, she says, her voice clear and calm. My father built this bank. I inherited it. You walked out on your wife, Daniel. You also walked out on the owner of the bank you're trying to use. A low murmur ripples through the lobby. Lila's face drains of color. Roger's eyes widen as he realizes who she truly is. Daniel staggers back a half step. You own this? Since when? Why didn't you ever tell me? Elena doesn't flinch. You never cared enough to ask, she replies. You were too busy resenting what you didn't have to notice what was already in your home. Elena opens the briefcase she carries and takes out a file, handing it to Colin. Please attach this to his application, she says. Colin opens it, his expression tightening as he reads. With each page, the picture becomes clearer. Copies of Daniel and Lila's messages, Megan Riley's statement about the fake pregnancy, a timeline of Daniel's abandonment, his loan form listing separated and preparing to remarry, documentation of his false use of his employer's name. Colin hands the file to Roger. Roger reads quickly, his face growing more furious. He looks at Daniel. You used company email, company time, and my name to forge credibility for this loan? He says. You lied about your position and stability. Daniel lifts his hands helplessly. I just needed a way out. I was going to pay it back. You're done, Roger cuts in. You're terminated, effective immediately. HR will send your formal notice by email. The words land like a hammer. Lila slowly edges away from Daniel, her posture changing. She looks at Elena, then at the security officers. I didn't know it was her, she mutters under her breath. You thought you could pretend to be pregnant and walk into a new life on someone else's name, Elena says calmly. You miscalculated. Lila glares at Daniel. You told me she was just some broke girl with a dead dad and no options. You made me believe you were trapped. She steps back. I'm not going down with you, she says, voice cold. I don't date unemployed men with no future. She turns and walks out through the glass doors, heels clicking, not once looking back. Daniel watches her leave, panic rising in his throat. He lunges toward Elena. Please, he begs, voice cracking. Elena, I'm sorry, I didn't know. If I had known, her eyes flash. If you had known I was rich, she says softly, you'd have treated me better. You'd have stayed. That doesn't sound like love, Daniel. That sounds like greed. The entire lobby is quiet. Security steps in closer, but they don't touch him yet. Daniel's shoulders collapse. Please, he whispers, don't do this. Don't destroy my life like this. Elena looks at him for a long moment. You did this, she replies. Not me. She nods once to security. Reject the application, she tells Colin. Flag his name in our system as high risk and unethical, and send the full file to Attorney Grace Hale. She'll handle the rest. Yes, Madam Chairwoman, Colin says. Security takes Daniel gently but firmly by the arms. He struggles. Elena, please. Elena, I'm the father of your child. She lifts her chin. You were, she corrects. But our child deserves better than a man who runs from responsibility and believes lies without checking the truth. They escort him toward the exit as customers and staff watch in heavy silence. Daniel's voice breaks. Please don't let this be the end, Elena. But she doesn't follow him. She doesn't chase. She doesn't explain herself. She stands in the center of her bank, not small, not hidden, as the doors close behind him. Roger approaches her carefully. Madam Chairwoman, he says, if there's anything our company needs to do in terms of documenting his misconduct, we'll cooperate fully. Thank you, Elena replies. Grace will contact your HR department. She closes her briefcase with a soft click. Have the legal documents prepared, she says quietly to no one in particular. But Colin hears, and so do the watching staff. Divorce, full custody, appropriate financial responsibility. The court needs to see exactly who he chose to be. Around her, the lobby slowly returns to motion, but everyone knows they've just witnessed a life shatter. This is not the end of Daniel's fall. It's just the most public part. Later that day in Grace's office, a new stack of papers is stamped and filed. Summons, petitions, and evidence bundles, all moving toward the same place, the courtroom. Several weeks later, the large wooden doors of the courthouse swing open and Daniel Ward steps inside. He wears an ill-fitting suit. His hair is messy, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Since the bank incident, he has lost his job, his lover, and his reputation. 2 courthouse security officers walk behind him, not because he's dangerous, But because they've seen men in his state before, desperate, unsteady, clinging to the last hope of mercy. Inside the courtroom, the benches are half full, a mix of curious locals, a few bank employees, and staff from Daniel's former office. Word about the bank confrontation spread faster than any rumor. Some people are here out of concern. Others come to see if the stories were true. At the front, on the raised platform, sits Judge Roswell, early 50s, known for being firm but fair. He flips through the thick file in front of him, reading page after page, his expression growing heavier. On the right side of the courtroom, at the petitioner's table, sits Elena Ward. She is dressed in a simple black dress and a neat blazer. Her pregnancy is more visible now, but she carries it with quiet grace. Her hands are folded calmly on the table. Beside her sits Grace Hale, composed, attentive, several organized folders and tabs laid out in front of her. On the left side sits Daniel, alone. Lila is nowhere in sight. She sent a short message weeks ago. "We should take a break. I need to think about my life." She never called again. Daniel's eyes keep drifting to Elena. She no longer looks like the woman who begged him not to leave. She looks like someone who has accepted what she cannot change. "Elena," he whispers hoarsely, even though he knows he shouldn't speak yet. "Please, don't do this. I was confused. I made mistakes. I'm sorry." Elena hears him. She doesn't answer. Grace leans in and whispers, "You don't have to respond to him." Elena nods, eyes forward. Judge Roswell clears his throat. The murmurs in the courtroom fade. "Mr. Ward," the judge begins, "I have reviewed the evidence submitted by Mrs. Ward and her counsel." Daniel swallows. The judge lifts a stack of documents, printouts of messages, statements from Megan Riley, the investigator's report from Jonah Pierce, the bank's internal notes, and Daniel's loan application indicating separated, preparing to remarry. "Your messages show clear emotional abandonment and intent to leave your wife before any attempt at reconciliation," Judge Roswell says. "You left your pregnant spouse, refused responsibility, and attempted to begin a new life based on a false pregnancy claim from another woman." Daniel grips the edge of his table. "Your Honor, I didn't know she was lying about the pregnancy." "That," the judge interrupts, "is precisely the issue. You did not know because you did not care to know. You never verified her claim. You did not ask your wife for clarity. You simply chose the path that allowed you to escape." The words slice through whatever excuses Daniel had left. Judge Roswell continues, flipping to another section. "Additionally, you misused your employer's name and position to attempt to secure a large personal loan from your wife's bank without disclosure under false pretenses. That places this case on more than just a personal level." The courtroom is quiet enough to hear a cough in the back row. The judge turns his attention to Elena. "Mrs. Ward," he says, "do you wish to pursue full custody with limited or no visitation rights for Mr. Ward at this time?" Elena's throat tightens, but her voice is clear. "Yes, Your Honor," she says. "I do. For our child's stability and safety. I don't want him in and out of their life, making promises he can't keep." Daniel shakes his head, panicked. "No, please, Your Honor. I can change. I'll be better. I'll provide. I just—" "Mr. Ward," the judge says firmly, raising a hand, "you will have your chance to speak, but I will not ignore what you have already done." A long silence follows. Then Judge Roswell delivers his decision. Custody of the child is granted to Mrs. Elena Ward, with no visitation rights granted to Mr. Daniel Ward at this time. Mr. Ward may petition in the future only if he can demonstrate consistent responsibility, emotional stability, and genuine change, which will be reviewed carefully by this court. Daniel's shoulders slump. "Furthermore," the judge continues, "the divorce is granted, and due to your actions, abandonment, deceit, and attempted financial manipulation, you are ordered to pay financial support. The specific amount will be calculated based on your remaining earning capacity and assets, such as they are." He slams the gavel once. "Court is adjourned." The sound is final. Daniel sinks into his chair, trembling. The room begins to empty. People stand, chatter, and drift toward the doors, leaving him in the wreckage of the life he tried to rebuild on lies. Elena stands slowly. Grace starts gathering the documents, slipping them neatly into her briefcase. Daniel forces himself to stand, and stumbles toward Elena. "Elena, please," he begs, voice raw. "Please don't take everything from me. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I know I failed. Just don't let this be it." She turns to face him. Her eyes are not cruel. They are calm, tired, done. "I didn't take anything from you, Daniel," she says softly. "You gave it away, piece by piece. Every time you chose a lie over the truth, every time you walked further from our home, every time you believed someone else instead of talking to me." Tears stream down his face. He drops to his knees right there on the worn wooden floor. "I'm begging you," he says. "Please forgive me. Please let me see our child. Please." Elena's eyes shine with tears, but they don't fall. "For our child," she says, "I choose peace. They deserve a life without chaos, broken promises, or watching me get hurt over and over again." She pauses, her voice barely more than a whisper. "For myself," she continues, "I choose to walk away." She steps past him. As she moves toward the courtroom doors, security keeps an eye on Daniel, making sure he doesn't follow. The final image inside that room is Daniel Ward, the man who thought he could trade his wife for a better life, now kneeling alone, broken, with no one left to speak for him. Outside, the sunlight spills across the courthouse steps. The air feels lighter than it has in months. Elena walks down slowly, one hand resting on the side rail, the other cradling her stomach. Grace and Rena wait at the bottom, eyes full of quiet pride. Rena rushes up and hugs her gently. "It's over," she whispers. "You did it." Grace nods. "You protected yourself and your child." Elena looks up at the sky for a moment, letting the warmth touch her face. She thinks of her father's voice, his hands, his laugh, of the chest of documents she once hid in a dim bedroom, of the bank lobby where she finally stood in her full identity. She places her hand over her stomach. "To my child," she whispers, "you will never grow up thinking it's normal to be treated as less. You will know love. You will know safety. You will know that we are enough." The wind moves gently through her hair. For the first time in a long time, she breathes without feeling like something is pressing on her chest. She is free. She is powerful. She is enough. As Elena turns toward the waiting car, Jonah Pierce steps forward from the side, holding a small sealed envelope. "Elena," he says quietly, "there's one more thing. It's about Daniel's future, and what happens if he keeps trying to play games with money he doesn't have." Elena takes the envelope, her eyes calm. "Whatever it is," she says, "let it come. I'm ready now." She turns, steps into the car, and the door closes softly. The story doesn't end with Daniel's destruction. It ends with Elena's decision to live fully, for herself and for the life growing inside her. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoy creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.